Still in here.
Because I see like finding bookcases.
Yes, I did.
You did a good job.
Actually, really like. We put some in our living room when we redid our kitchen in our living room at the same time. So we had the cabinet maker built or walls, like a 3-foot high wall. And we went up 10 feet on the bookcases. So
Wonderful.
I want one of those ladders.
What?
Rolling ladders. My wife wouldn't go for.
Oh, really?
I think that'd be so cool. She said, it's just be in the way.
And
Yeah,
then
but
we'll
it's
have
so
to
neat.
close it for the
Yeah,
closing.
we walk around, they just love it. Yeah, the kids, grandkids would really love it.
Mayor Johnson, when you're ready, we're live on YouTube.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. And I'd like to welcome everybody to our Utah County COVID Economic Recovery Committee meeting. The date is November 3rd, 2020. We have our committee members in attendance, with the exception of Mayor Kafusi, who is on her way, and she should be here momentarily. Mayor Frost will also be joining us. He did have another appointment he had to finish up first, but as soon as he is able to join us, he will join us online. So that being said, the first item on the agenda is public comment. I did not see any public comment come in. Staff, did we have some public comment?
Yes.
Would you
Yep, I'll share that.
please go over that?
This is from a business who received a grant in round one. I'll try and summarize. It's a couple of pages. So they wanted to express their situation is a little bit different than other businesses in Utah County. They offer hiking tours in the Alps. It says, however, with the emergence of the worldwide health crisis, the severe travel restrictions in place eliminated access by U.S. citizens to Europe. It shut down their businesses. All scheduled tours for 2020, including popular Christmas tours in December, has been canceled. This means no revenue. There's no way they can open their business partially. Travel to Europe is either closed or open, and as a result, we have no income until the travel restrictions are limited. Numerous businesses that secured funds in the first round have rebounded and are actually hiring and expanding. If distribution of the remaining funds only takes into account the original application, many businesses which are now profitable would potentially be awarded grant money, leaving little for those of us who are most severely impacted. We understand that the CARES Act grants have been designated to help businesses severely impacted by COVID. Although we were given funds from the initial Utah County round of funding, we see our situation as extenuating and worthy of consideration for a second grant. We understand the cap for CARES Act funding being managed by MAG is $20,000 and ask that you consider granting our Utah County business $10,000 to assist in keeping the company viable in anticipation of travel restrictions being lifted. And this is Alpenwild from round one.
Okay. So they were if I understand it, they were funded in round one, but because of the restrictions, you couldn't come back if you were approved in one. So, okay, we can have some consideration of that in our discussion for final. Were there any other comments? Was that it?
That's it.
Anybody have any questions on that comment? Amen. Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the time for public comment. And item number 2 is small business and nonprofit grant updates.
Okay, I'll take the first part of that. So final numbers changed very slightly from the announcement on the COVID call yesterday. We had 2 applicants that reached out to us prior to the deadline, letting us know that they were having technical issues with Zoom grants. And we can confirm that because it was running very, very slow as we had a huge push last Friday. So we did allow 2 more applicants to submit their applications because we could tell they were in the pending column and almost done. So the very final total as of now, this morning, no more applications. 506 small business applications were submitted for a total of just over $5.2 million. So those numbers on the board are something else. We'll get to those. The nonprofit second round, 14 applications were submitted for $350,000, just over $350,000. And just a reminder, today is November 3rd. We are 13 days away from the deadline for this committee to expend the funds. So what we would like to do today is go into detail about where we are with all of the applications, both the small business and the nonprofit, and then discuss possible leftover funding for round 1. And we'll get into the details of that in agenda item 4. But included in the update, I wanted to have Jessica go over our in-depth review process that we've done to get to this point and then answer any questions from the committee.
Yep, so our process included review by at least 2 different MAG staff members for each application. So the reviews compared application answers and documents to the guidelines that this committee established. And then we made notes on the eligibility determination into the application notes section, if you recall in Zoom grants. So if an application was determined eligible by the first reviewer, a second reviewer also reviewed it and confirmed eligibility, and that got moved to green that you'll see on your list. For those that required follow-ups because their questions or their answers or documents were unclear or incomplete, we sent follow-up communication to the applicant, usually via email. We did do some follow-up calls as the time to fix those drew near. But we sent those emails with instructions on how to fix those, and they got 48 hours to do that. The second reviewer would see if those completions were made. If not, they got a second email with another 48 hours to fix those. And then yesterday, we did a final review of any that still were needing corrections, and we did follow-up calls yesterday to anyone who still needed those. So they've gotten usually 3 reminders if they needed corrections to make those. We kept a log with each applicant that noted the reviewer's name, the date that it was reviewed, the eligibility determination, corrections made, and any other pertinent information, any communications that we've had with the applicant. And then after the deadline, we ran reports from Zoom grants. We compared EINs, applicant names, and business names. We looked for duplicates to make sure that within this, the same business was not submitting multiple applications. We also looked for duplicates between round 1 and round 2 to make sure that no one awarded in round 1 applied again for the same business in round 2. And then we ran other reports just to triple check answers on eligibility. So that included making sure that the proposed award amount did not exceed the max for their number of FTEs, making sure that they were in Utah County, that they reported a 5,000 or 15% loss due to COVID, and that their business had been established by March 1 of 2020. So that's our review process in a nutshell.
Sounds like a great review process.
And during that time, the county staff did have access to Zoom grants and application. Friday, they did send us a list of possible concerns, and we sent back what I believe we resolved, but we can work out any questions that they have, but we have that list. And so our goal today would really kind of be to hammer out the final details, and then the MAG team working with the county, we would recommend by this Friday, November 6th, I believe, is it the 6th on Friday, to be ready to present the final list to the committee next Tuesday for your final approval. Next Tuesday is the 10th, and then we can begin running checks as the county transfers funds over. And with that timeline, we feel confident that the money can be expended by the November 16th deadline.
I'm comfortable with that. Is the rest of the committee comfortable with that? We can't take an action on that, but we can do the recommendation. How's the county feel about that?
I mean, we're still reviewing their work, and I think that by Friday we should be completed with it. So, and hopefully we have things resolved by then. I am going to recommend that we did like we did last time, when you guys vote, that you vote to approve the slate subject to our final kind of sign off, and we give the green light for the funds to be. We've already we have the funds actually just ready to move, so we've got that all ready to go. But we want to make sure we're comfortable with the work and we sign off on it. We'll send everybody over for checks we process.
Okay. So, yeah, I think my only concern is to make sure that we don't get tripped up on any deadlines.
Yeah.
That we move, we're ahead of all those.
One of the challenges that just came late from the Treasury was they added another requirement onto all of these grants that we've approved. The good news is that we've addressed probably 80–90% of that. We anticipated concerns and issues related to the PPP loan. So we asked every applicant about whether they got PPP loan monies. We asked for the amount. We wanted to know what it was spent for. But it appears from what our analysis is showing and what other jurisdictions are doing with respect to the new rules, we may need to send out kind of a letter to all of our grantees, all of our awardees, just basically having them certify that the funds that they're using from the Utah grant, the Utah County grant, are not covering the same things that were being used for their PPP loans. We have to assume that all PPP loans are going to be, are not going to be refunded. In other words, people are going to have to count that as revenue. And those are just some of the things that just came. This just came within the last couple of weeks from the Treasury. And I do want to, I think that we can continue to go forward with all of the things that we have put forth, but I think that we may need to send out sort of a kind of a certification or self-certification to ask our grantees and awardees a little more information about their PPP loan.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but didn't we have some questions in there when they filled out the application for what PPP was for?
Yes, and then we also specifically spoke about duplication of benefits, and we're pulling it up now, but also when they submitted their application, there was a paragraph or two regarding certification of that the information they provided was truthful and that they are following the guidelines, which included the duplication of benefit. So I don't know if that solves the issue rather than going back and reaching out, but they did certify that they were being truthful and they were using the funds according to the guidelines set forth. And the guidelines do specifically address duplication of benefit.
So,
Right,
but
but I
you
did
want
not see
something,
like a checkbox on there that the person said, I'm certified and I'm not going to. I think most of the questions of PPP loans I saw on the application were more open-ended. And I would just feel more comfortable if I had kind of a sign off from the grantee that they understood that the monies had to be segregated.
okay,
Because of the nature of the FAQs sent out by the federal government. And they really lined this out very specifically. We're not excited about it. We're frustrated because they should have told us this, 6 months ago instead of waiting till the 11th hour to add a new rule. The good news is I think we're almost there. And actually, as we talk back and forth, and maybe we'll have to include Robert in this discussion as well, is we may be okay. I just want to make sure that we round this discussion out so that we feel comfortable with what we've asked. And then the other thing is just maybe have a little extra scrutiny on our review with respect to that PPP question. Does that make sense?
so at the end though, if I recall, when they signed it, it was a sworn statement that they, complied with all the questions that were in there. Is that?
So, and we can send County and Robert, and the FAQs and the guidelines specifically address that. Can you clarify one thing? So our concern is with meeting the deadline, if before you transfer the funds or before we cut the checks, if we'll have to make these certifications. Because the last time the W-9 came up, as you remember, and that added another 2 weeks onto our process to reach out to over 700 grant applications and check the W-9s and review those. And so that certainly, if that would be the case again, we would not make that November 16th deadline.
Correct.
If this is something the county feels once they were awarded and we're in the process of cutting the checks, but we are reaching out to all of our award recipients.
Now, Michelle, on the first round, I know that we did the signature page that they submitted along with their W-9. Are we doing that same kind of thing with the round 2?
Included in the acknowledgements when they submitted. So we didn't want to do that step again because that with the W-9 added 2 weeks to our review process. And so all of that verbiage that we collected post-award, well, prior to sending the checks, was done when they submitted the application to save us time because we were concerned about the deadline.
Yeah, we need to probably review. I want to think that we can make the deadline. But if we feel strongly that there's some extra information that we need to collect so that we're not putting ourselves at risk for audit, as well as our grantees, we probably need to get that done and do what we need to. So, like I said, I'm not real happy about it, but Treasury.
So can I suggest that we that the county review the data that we have in that application again quickly? Because, yeah, I don't think we want to be at risk of being, party on that. Anything else on that? Okay, hearing none. Next item on the agenda, is that, yeah? Any more?
Well, okay, yeah, and I'll get this, but I do want to emphasize, there is a tab in the application where it has a paragraph regarding the duplication of benefits and what that means, and that they cannot use these funds for the same things as some of their PPP money, and then they do submit a legal disclaimer
Oh, they do.
when they submit the application.
If that's the case, then I feel pretty confident, pretty comfortable with
Okay.
if you've got that
And we
there.
can, yeah, and it's
I want to
it's
just
part of the
review
set-
that,
the
make
setup.
sure.
And so there was no, click, I agree on that particular thing, but we had all the guidelines, all the rules they had to follow. And then before they submitted that application, it said, you will be following the guidelines and everything you've said is truthful in the application.
Will you send that?
Yes.
So you can review that right after
Yeah.
this.
I mean, one thing that I'm very grateful for is the foresight that this committee had in making sure that they asked those kinds of questions, because their jurisdiction, it blindsided them and now they're scrambling. So I think that, I think we ought to be at least happy that we had that foresight.
Okay, let's go to item number 3. This is the action item to approve the set date, time, and location of closed door meeting. Discuss the character of professional conference of physical and mental health of individuals. Of course, this is primarily here to protect the information, private information, business information for businesses. So I'd like to take an action on item number 3.
I make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any questions on the motion?